To the Crypto Bunker podcast. I'm your host, Brian Doyle, and today I want you to take a look at the chart currently that we're looking at now. No, this is not the Ethereum chart. This is the gold chart. um, this is the gold chart from 2011 to 2023, and I'm not sure if you can tell or if you can notice. It is the exact pattern that we have seen in Ethereum from 2021 to essentially the present. And if you look at the chart, you can see even the moving averages are the same. So to have this constant attempt at 2000, right, for gold, we had one attempt, pretty much two, three, four, five, six, you know, um, for Ethereum, it's very similar. So for Ethereum, we have had, since that, we've had one, two, three, four attempts at that 4K level, similar to gold. Similar moving averages actually move to gold. So you can see that we, just like we crashed in gold, after attempting the 2000 level, we crashed down to maybe around 1700-ish, 1800. Could have been lower actually. Could have been 1500. But we crashed below the 200 week in gold. Okay, just like we have in ETH here. So just right here, essentially, um, we crashed below the 200 week. We went to around 1600. And then we came back up and then we were rejected. So we actually did almost pretty much make a new high in April of 2023, and then we were rejected. Okay. And we had a long sort of consolidation and which ended in a washout. For Ethereum, I think we could say um, it didn't necessarily end in a washout, but it started in a washout, pretty much. I mean, it went sideways. It's actually pretty similar to what gold did. It got rejected and then it kind of crashed in basically into the 200 week, just like gold did. So it actually made the same exact. It's the same exact pattern from this here being gold in 2020 to this here being gold in April of 23 to this here being gold in July of 23 to this being gold in October of 2023. Now, I say this, because I've been talking about the macro for Ethereum. Obviously, the macro picture is completely bullish. So a lot of people in crypto, again, they don't follow the right people. They're in like kind of an echo chamber of people who don't understand macro. They're very much macro tourists, and they're not really understanding what's about to happen in macro. So we also have in that, I mean, just to talk about macro a little bit, which I wasn't going to do, but we do have this S&P chart playing out right now, which is very similar to 2020. So essentially, we had the 2020 crash, which was back here. It's pretty much the same, almost the same thing happened here. We obviously crashed more during COVID, but here we crashed into a similar weekly moving average. We came up and we just continued the bull market as it was. We then have this sort of inverse head and shoulders forming in stocks, and very comfortable at these levels. Volatility very low, dollar going lower, rates going lower, quantitative easing coming in, the Treasury beginning to print money. So also we have the AI bubble that hasn't even really started yet, and except people think that it has. And so we have these kind of confluence of things that for me is telling me this year of 26 is going to be more like 2021. We have a very corrupt government that is going to print as much money as possible, pump markets as much as possible, put in people they want for the Federal Reserve chair, all of these types of things that are going to pump the markets. We're also going to get more of a Clarity Act, market structure bill for crypto. We also have the most bearish sentiment I've ever seen in crypto, especially for people who have been in it a long time, like people who are usually what I would call permabulls. They've kind of given up actually. Like they've pretty much capitulated at this point. Um, and we now have Bitcoin. I honestly I don't necessarily so what I found in Bitcoin recently was that the chart pattern is actually pretty similar to what it was actually back in this area here before we had a big rally. So that's kind of what this is here, and I just extended it out. It's very similar. It's just sort of a stretched out version of what we saw back there. So essentially, for Bitcoin, it's similar. We actually are about to cross into a bearish pattern, which again has always confirmed a bear market in the past. I think this is going to fake a lot of people out. Um, there's also a lot of major banks, I guess, who are predicting, the Bitcoin price to hit 150, 170, 100 and, in that sort of range, which I think is pretty accurate for what we're going to see for Bitcoin next year. Um, so yeah, just higher lows, make a low here, a low here, a higher low here, hold it and then break above 100 and hold that, and then you'll sort of be on your way. And I think we're getting pretty close, but you can see this sort of pattern that took place here. It's kind of these like rolling hills, you could call them. So for Bitcoin, it's kind of like these rolling hills. And then it just moons, right? And then you kind of get a consolidation, moon, rolling hills, comes down and crashes, and then you kind of probably get a moonshot after that. So a lot of people are off sides currently. We also have, interestingly enough, which I don't think enough people are really looking at all, is the ETH Bitcoin ratio. I mean, when's the last time Benjamin Callen, you know, wasn't isn't he supposed to be tracking? Actually, let me just say this. I haven't actually watched a lot of his videos lately, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But isn't he the one that's like always like, it's a guarantee that ETH goes down against Bitcoin in December, and that's where we make the low. And when did this happen? I mean, we essentially went directly sideways um, in December for Ethereum against Bitcoin. And now, you know, we're breaking out on a 4 hourly and we're about to be in order. I mean, it's like this is similar to the breakout we saw in early December when we started to rally a lot. So there was someone who sold a ton of ETH for Bitcoin in the past 24 hours. I think that's going to end up being a huge mistake for whoever that is, that they think that somehow they think Bitcoin, of all things, is going to outperform ETH this year. Um, I think it's a safe bet for me, not financial advice, for me personally, that Ethereum is going to go up 100% this year, probably to around 6,000. And I think Bitcoin will probably go up around 70, 60%. Probably put it around, 150 to 160K and put ETH around 6K. That would be sort of my conservative targets. I mean, these are big assets now. All of our dreams of like, 10K and 12, like, yes, I do think it's going to go to 12K. That's my target for Ethereum. That's when I would, consider selling everything. But essentially, I also think Ethereum long term could go to like 100K. If it's, if we use it as a global settlement layer, and hopefully we do, because we don't want to use digital currencies that are on centralized ledgers that are made by governments, obviously. So this is really our solution. It is what it is. It's the solution that we have created as humanity, and it's here. So we have to embrace that. Um, and we have to sort of be a part of it because it's a decentralized network, incredibly neutral, working on ZK proofs for privacy, for our transactions to be private, working on quantum resistant, working on government resistance, censorship resistance. I mean, what more can you really ask for, right? I mean, it's definitely putting in the work that we need, and we just have to be objective about it. Um, but to me, this is just so bullish. I mean, look at this chart on a long-term time frame. I'm not really seeing anything that would tell me to be super bearish. Um, I mean, we've essentially made these higher lows. We popped out the bottom there. I'm curious, if that happened with gold. Maybe we pop, out the bottom in gold as well. We probably did. Um, just like this, we crashed through the 200 week. The moving averages for the weekly time frame are pretty much skinny. Um, so as you can see here, I'll just show the gold chart again. Um, sorry, we with the 20 week went through the 200 here. Um, and when we broke down, we then went back in order, and then we kind of had this correction here where we're sort of not in order. We're in a little bit of trouble. That's what it looks like. But I'll show you the gold chart now, because it's like literally the same thing. So we obviously had this crash through. It almost crossed the 200, so it didn't quite cross. Then we had this rally up, new all-time highs. Then we had this big correction where we were very skinny on the moving averages. It wasn't anything crazy, right? I mean, you could say, but now look at how far we've gone. So the moving averages, if I can copy this, but you can see how wide they are. And I think this is the top. So I'm calling the top on gold. It's not really not that hard. You just look at the chart for gold and it's a pretty obvious time that is topping, but look at where the moving averages are. I mean, for gold, literally, actually, this is crazy. So for the gold rally that we're experiencing now, the moving averages are wider than they were even for the 2021 Ethereum bubble, basically. Well, you could call this a bubble because, you know, you may actually not be able to call it a bubble, to be honest, but you could definitely call this a bubble in 2017. But we didn't even have a 200 week moving average at that time. But essentially, what I'm saying is that gold, um, you know, people, uh, people don't understand. Like um, gold front runs everything, right? So anything you think gold is front running, it's already done that. Or anything you think you're investing in gold for, it's most likely already done that. Okay, so I apologize for my hand being up. I don't know. I think yeah, forget that. But anyway, so you can see how long we've been in order and how long this rally has lasted. And I honestly think that Ethereum is going to have a similar sustainable rally. Um, it's going to catch a ton of people off guard. And what it's going to do is it's going to just keep testing the 20 week on the way up. The only thing I worry about is Bitcoin. I don't trust that Bitcoin is going to do the same thing. I just hope that Ethereum can flip Bitcoin, or that we can just separate somehow separate the networks from each other. Um, maybe it's Ethereum, I don't know, it's becoming more quantum resistant, right? I mean, because they are working on that, and Bitcoin is not. So Bitcoin will, I believe, will fail long term. So it sucks that that's the case because obviously, um, right now it determines, in some ways the price of Ethereum, and that's unfortunate. Um, but Ethereum is it has a more bullish setup to me. So, I mean, to me, it's like 20K is possible for Ethereum. If we look at sort of the fibs here and we just put it, just kind of do that, you're looking at this target of like, 12 to 15, 16K at the tops, maybe, um, upwards of 20K. But, you know, you can actually go back and look at the targets that were made for Ethereum. We could go from here to here, and we can see essentially that the um, the target was basically hit on the 3618 for Ethereum there. Um, and now if we do that again um, for this run, we can see that we're looking at potentially around 19K if it was to hit the 3618. And I wouldn't be surprised because so many people are short, so many people hate Ethereum, so many people hate crypto within crypto. Like it is so bearish out there. I mean, people literally are just talking about like gambling and schemes and how it's all a Ponzi and how it's like, oh, well, we're just trading it and we're just trading this little range, from 3K to 3,500 and then we're selling it all and we're walking away from crypto, right? Like next time it hits all-time highs, I'm gonna sell it all, and it's like they sell it all and um and then what's gonna happen, right? So it's crazy. The people in crypto actually think it's the biggest scam because they're so jaded because they're just within this like echo chamber of people who are just trying to make it big and people who are trying to win the lottery, but not actually looking at the fundamentals of crypto. Um, the fundamentals of the flows of Ethereum, the total value locked, the access to decentralized finance and technologies that just you cannot find anywhere else. Um, the amount that it's actually securing, right? No one talks about that. The amount of value that Ethereum, the network, is actually securing on the chain. This is real world assets. This is stable coins. This is other crypto assets. This is ETH, the asset. This is the staking protocols, the DeFi protocols, the DAOs, the identification protocols, the all of it, right? It's all secured on Ethereum, and it's the most secure chain. So, the big banks, if they're going to use it, which they already are definitely going to look to deploy on Ethereum. We also have this sort of reverse head and shoulders here on Ethereum. So I just wanted to point that out. But if you take it's like an arrow, right? So that's kind of the it's like a slingshot, right? So obviously you have, this, it dips below, and then we have this kind of slingshot that's coming here. And so, it's a very bullish pattern. We then have, you basically attach that to like the top and you get to around 12K. So, you can also look at this kind of pattern that's forming. It's obviously kind of failed here. So I get that. But there's a lot of people who said that the gold cup and handle had also failed. And guess what? The gold cup and handle looked exactly the same as this. So I'm going to actually just take the gold chart for our final little aspect here of the video. And I'm going to show the gold chart versus Ethereum. It's not going to be perfect. I'm not really going to line them up because it's hard to get it to be exact, but I am going to show you the similarities here. Okay, um, so yeah, we can basically see um, the similarities here. Obviously, um, so this is to me, it's actually striking. Even to go back to this part of it, even to go back to this part of it somehow, like how does that happen? Um, and so this part is sort of where it diverged. But at the same time, like this is the same pattern, right? You can see that. You can see that pattern right there on Ethereum. Um, and so, people said this is a cup and handle for gold. And, Ethereum is more volatile, right? So it went down farther in this area for sure, for sure. And it went farther in this area than down here, but not much. And you can even see in gold, um, this aspect, which was actually here for Ethereum, that was this aspect. So you can see, we obviously had this, and we had this part where it's like kept trying to break through, and then it tried to break through again, then it couldn't, so it just crashed out. Um, Came back and rallied up again, all-time high, crashed again. Okay, and then everyone was saying, I remember them saying this, and I am not going to allow myself to mess this one up. Okay, because I messed up gold and silver. Um, I'm not going to mess up ETH. I'm just not going to do it. So, but I remember people saying there's no such thing as a triple top. And that is a thing. Like it's trying to break through. So no matter because it kept trying to break through and then crash down, it's going to then make a new high. And I remember saying this with gold as well. Um, at that time, and it's true. Okay, this is the same thing with Ethereum here. It's the same pattern as gold. It's the same moving averages. Look at where the moving averages are compared to where we're looking at for gold. Do you really want to buy that moving average? Absolutely not. This is overstretched to the absolute limit, and it's time now that this essentially goes back probably to, you know, um, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Maybe we are on a super cycle for gold, but in general, we definitely had opportunities in gold in the past in a long bull market, sort of similar to this. Like if you look at the time frame from this low to this, um, it was about 10 years, right? That we had that rally there. And this one, if you look at where the moving average is, I mean, so I drew that down pretty far. This one I would draw to like here, okay? So it hasn't been 10 years. So 10 years would be the 28, right? So but it's similar. This is a similar move that it's made going up. And these moving averages are definitely wider than they've ever been. So I can see that on the chart now. I don't even have to measure it. These weekly moving averages are more overstretched than they've ever been. Now let's look at silver. Now, when you see a moving average going completely parabolic, literally a moving average, not even the chart, like the 20-week moving average, we're talking about something that is very similar to what happened in 2011, but even I would say more overstretched at this point, more parabolic, right? Um, so just be careful in these assets. I do think for silver we're going to see 50 again. That would be a prediction. I don't really know what the target for gold would be, maybe 3,500. A good 30% correction would be, typical. We haven't really had one in gold. I mean, there's just been no pullbacks. And I think finally people are sort of getting in, right? People are finally capitulating. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, the gold, even the GDX is just gone parabolic. So, just be aware of that. Um, and yeah, stay safe out there. Hopefully, everyone has a great New Year. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. And happy holidays. And hopefully, everyone can have a great 2026 with your work and everything you're doing in your life. I wish you luck and I wish you well.